Okay, so welcome to Apprentice Level 1 installation training. Today we're going to be installing this small kitchen in a condo. So I just wanted to show what the job site looked like when we walked in. All the cabinets have been delivered for us. They've already been unwrapped mostly. Some jobs have the cabinets unwrapped, sometimes we gotta unbox them. So in this case, everything's unwrapped. Since we're going to be installing on these two walls, we need to get all the cabinets clear of these walls so that we can lay out the walls and figure out where all our cabinets need to sit. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to rearrange this space. This is a really tight area. Most of them aren't this tight, but we're basically going to take the cabinets that we're going to use last and put them in corners first. So that way when they're set up, we'll work in reverse. Taking the cabinets that we're going to need first will be at the front of the stack. So the island, we always do the island last, so it's not in our way. So we're going to take the blue island cabinets, shove them in the corner. We're going to take all the other base cabinets because that's the next to the last thing we do. We'll put those in front of the island, and then all of our upper cabinets will arrange over here in this area. We also want to make sure that the floors are protected. When the guys deliver these cabinets, they put them mostly on cardboard. There's some areas here where we have finished floor. We're going to lay some blankets down before we put our upper cabinets over there. And so now we will do that. We're setting all these cabinets in the corner. We're going to install the upper cabinets first. So we're going ahead and disassembling them. And by disassembling, we are taking the doors off, the shelves out, and taking the shipping feet off the top and bottom. So these are called compact hinges, and you just take the screws out right here. There's another type of hinge we'll show on a different job that just clips off. You don't have to unscrew it. And we're going to prop these doors against here, and protection being our number one priority is to just put a little piece of foam here against the door so that we're not scratching their doors. So we will take this apart and pull this shelf out. Sometimes these shelves are sent with these little clips. You can just take a pair of pliers, pull them out. This keeps the shelf from falling out. And then remove the shelf, and we'll stack these in the other room. Here it is. All our upper cabinets here, base cabinets there, and they're pretty much in order of how we're going to install them. So the next thing we are going to do is layout. We're going to start with the laser, and we're going to show basically how the laser works, and then we're going to draw lines on the wall and figure out our out points and high points. Okay, this is our laser level. It shoots beams in 3 directions. So I can shoot a beam across the top this way, gives you a horizontal line, and then I can also have 2 vertical lines. So that allows us, these 2 vertical lines are at a 45-degree angle. So we can get a vertical plumb plane at a perpendicular direction, and then the horizontal line running this way. So for our purposes right now, we need the horizontal line because we're trying to find the high point in the floor, which we'll do by finding the smallest dimension on our tape measure. So if down here we're 30 and 7/16, then we're looking for any dimensions that are smaller than that. We have found the high point in the floor. Basically, a high point is we're looking for, if you're thinking about a floor being level, you're looking for the tallest point. So our cabinets are going to touch the floor at one point and run like this. And there's a hump somewhere. It's either a hump or it could be just simply the floor is higher on this end of the room than on this end. And if our laser is here, whatever is the shortest dimension is going to be the high point in the floor, because this dimension from here to here will be longer than the dimension from here to here. So in this case, our high point is right here, and I always add an extra 16th just to make sure, in case we missed it a little bit, we don't want to have to cut off the bottoms of any cabinets. So we'll adjust the laser to sit right on that. Then we'll go through and we will make little tick marks at the center of the laser like this every couple feet, and then we will turn the laser off and connect all those tick marks with a level, and that will give us our benchmark line where the top of our base cabinet sit. The top of a standard base cabinet sits at 34.5 inches. There will be a quiz on that later. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is mark studs. It's important to mark the studs at the bottom where the base cabinets are going to go and at the very top, because many times studs are not plumb in the wall, or they'll be like a block up here and stuff you can't see, and you'll think there's a stud there. If you just make a mark and use a line and a level to make a line, there's no stud there. So so you mark the center of the stud. Sometimes you get crazy weird stuff in there, but you know there's a stud if it's just 3 lines. All right, and you also want to check, like over here we got a sink cabinet, and if we're finding a stud like right here above this water line or above this drain line, may not be a stud, it might be a water line. So you need to be conscious about how water lines run in the wall. Usually they'll come down from the ceiling or straight up from the floor. Occasionally they'll come across. So we'll check the top. My assistant over here, Guy Buttersnaps, is trying to do wall layouts. If you hear strange noises in the background. Oh, what do I do? So we mark the studs down here and up here, and then we'll take a level and connect the two. We're going to take a drill and we're going to double check, because this stud finder is accurate, but sometimes it picks up stuff that's not really there. So we'll check with a drill, and I'll usually check about a 1/2 inch on either side of that line. You can feel a stud there. Stud there. Anything up here? Stud. If you keep on going, nothing right there. So we know if I go on a 1/2 inch on either side of that line and I hit the stud, then I know that we're pretty much in the center enough to make a mark. See, that one we missed. So I want to find where the edge is. So that's the edge. And that's the other edge. So our center is not here. Our center is here. So that's why we didn't draw our line yet. So now we'll do that all the way along the base, all the way along the uppers, and then we'll take a level and make a line between the two marks. That should roughly follow the center of the stud all the way down, so we know right where our studs are as we're screwing cabinets to the wall. Our next step is to find out points in the wall, which is the same basic thing as finding a high point in the floor. So just as a floor can have a hump or be leaning, a wall does the same thing. No wall is ever perfectly flat. The wall can lean in or out at the top, and it can also dip and have humps. So what we'll do is set the laser up over here, and John has gotten the laser on a 10-inch mark, 10 inches away from the wall down there and 10 inches away from the wall down here. And then we'll take that dimension and try to find anything less than 10 inches, and that'll tell us if our wall is moving in and out. We're just trying to get a picture of what the wall is doing, so we know when we're hanging these cabinets that we're not going to be on a weird trajectory and we hit a hump and end up shooting off, because we want all the cabinets to be flat on the face and compensate for the wall leaning or in and out. So we'll do that on this wall and this wall, get all our studs laid out, and then it will be time to start working on scribing our first filler. So now that we have cut this panel, we need to ease the edge with some sandpaper. We usually use about 180 grit. So this is real sharp right now. Has some little fuzzies on it. You can still see the line where we split it in half a little bit. So we'll first sand it. I'll start down here at this end. I hold it at about 45-degree angle or so, and just run it down the edge. That just cleans it up, makes it look real smooth, and then we look for any pencil marks that might be left. Make sure that those are erased. And then it'll be time to put it on the wall. We added blocking back here in the back for the back of this panel to be able to attach to the wall. We got this line by using our laser and everything. We want to make sure this panel is going back square and firmly attached at the back. So that's what that's for. And theoretically, this tucks behind that base down there. There it is. This is a T-jack. It is a cabinet support jack, and it's pretty simple to use. You can pull it up and down. It's basically a pipe with all thread. This right here, that can hurt your finger. So, key is don't have your hand in the way. But this, in order to adjust it, you can twist it and slide it up and down. And once it's flat, it locks in place, and you can fine tune it by screwing this knob up and down. So our bottom of our cabinet is going to sit here. So we're going to run the T-jack up, let it stop. We'll set the cabinet up on top of the T-jack and then adjust it right where we need to be. We'll screw it into the side of this panel and attach it to the wall. But first, we are going to attach this piece of wood on top, because on these type of cabinets, we have a piece of molding that's going to go right here, and then a piece of crown molding that goes to the ceiling. And the molding only laps over the top of this cabinet about a 1/2 inch, so that's not really enough to nail to. So we add an extra strip of wood across the top of the cabinet. We will screw it in, and that way it'll give us a little bit more meat to nail our molding to. If the cabinets go to the ceiling, this is a really good thing to remember to do, which I forget a lot, is to put this piece on before you hang the cabinet, because otherwise it's really hard to get up on top of there and attach that piece once it's up. We've added some blocking to the back of this wall to space it away from the wall, so it makes it a little bit easier to shim off of, so we don't have a big old space. We have hung this refrigerator cabinet. This panel had to be cut to fit the floor and the wall. We used a scribe block in the same way that we scribed the filler on this side. So this is plumb and level attached to the cabinet. And then we attached these two cabinets together and hung them as one unit. Now, what we'd like to show is how we hang a cabinet next to another. And this is a typical face frame application. There's another type of cabinet called European style or frameless. It does not have this solid frame on it. And we attach those a little bit different way. But when you have a face frame cabinet, we're gonna run a screw straight through this style into the side of the other one. So screw lengths, we have a couple different sizes. You always want to select a screw that's a little bit shorter than the total thickness of what you're going to screw together. So This is 3 inches wide. So we're gonna use a 2.5 inch screw, and we're gonna use this tapered pre-drill bit. So see how it's flat and then it tapers in at the bottom, and down here it has a countersink portion. So that allows the screw head to be flush with the front, and it gives a really clean look. So in this application, typically, because there's not a notch like this would be a normal 2 stiles. Stiles run vertically, rails run horizontally. But see how this screw is right there? That's where we would typically place it, right above the screw hole where the hinge was. But in this case, we have a notch for this special hinge that goes right here. One of our primary things that we want to do is always hide screws as much as possible. So I'm actually going to, instead of using a 2.5 inch screw and running it all the way through here, and using this big bit, see, that's what it would look like if we use the big bit. I'm going to actually use this smaller bit, and we're going to drill a hole right here, and I'm going to drill it right in front of this hinge plate. And then we'll use 1.25 inch screw, just like that. And then we'll repeat the same thing on the top. So this cabinet, I have gone ahead and attached it to the wall at the top. And when we screw our cabinets into the wall, we use a 3 inch washer head screw. This is a washer head. This is a taper head. See how that tapers? That looks like it has a washer on it. So this allows us to get a lot of firmer grip on the back of the cabinet and sucks everything tight to the wall. So what we'll do, we've already marked our studs on the wall, and because this is our out point, I've screwed it in tight at the top. Then we'll put our level on it and check to make sure that it is plumb. Plumb is level vertically, and level is level horizontally. I always get those mixed up sometimes, but I'm trying to be more consistent in my level vocabulary. So plumb is this way. So now what we will do is get some shims, and we want to fill the gap that's at this wall. So the wall is out of plumb that far. So we want to put these shims in here until they're just snug. And then we always pre-drill. And here I'll have to go at an angle because my stud is here, but the edge of the cabinet's there. So I'm going to go at an angle like this. That pre-drill like that. And then we'll take our 3 inch washer head screw and run it right here and hit that stud. Just like that. Now sometimes the sheetrock is not tight to the framing that's behind it. So when you run that screw in, it'll actually suck the sheetrock tight to the framing and it'll be out of plumb. So when you run a screw in, you want to make sure that the cabinet is still plumb, and we are good. So now we just want to make sure that all on upper cabinets, we make sure that we hit all the studs top and bottom. So I've got 2 screws in the top, I've got 1 here, and there's 1 more stud right here that we need to hit. A lot of times we'll break a shim in half just to get us a little bit more thickness. That one kind of busted, but they do that sometimes. And so we'll slide that up right in there. And we need a little bit more, just like that. We'll make it snug, and then do the same thing. Pre-drill and put in a 3 inch screw. This T-jack is in our way, so we can move it now because the cabinet's attached. And then we'll take our 3 inch screw and run it in. Just like that. So now the cabinet is plumb, it's level, it's attached to this cabinet. So we always attach it to the adjacent cabinet first, and then we will go back and screw it to the wall, because once you that way this joint doesn't move and you're just flexing the cabinet like this instead of it floating all over the place on you. And it's also important to make sure that these areas are flush at the top and the bottom and on the face. So that is basically how we hang an upper cabinet. We're going to go ahead and finish out this wall, and then we'll come back and show how we set base cabinets.
19 3/8.
19 3/8.
And then
So we are measuring out the plumbing and electrical for this sink base cabinet. We have to measure this to the center of our holes. This dictates the edge of our sink cabinet right here. And see how there's a little lip right here that's a 1/4 inch hanging over. So when I measure, John reads me a measurement. This line is actually to this face frame point. So I have to hold my tape measure past the side of the cabinet, so it's at an imaginary point of a 1/4 inch past the side of this cabinet. So it lines up with that, and then I will make the horizontal marks, and then he will pull down for the vertical marks from this top line. And this is where the top of our base cabinets are going to sit, which we drew, as you remember earlier, when we found the high point, which was, I think, somewhere in here, maybe over there. So once we lay all this out, we'll drill holes and cut out the outlets with a RotoZip, and then we'll install it. So we cut the outlets out with a RotoZip or drywall cutout tool. I don't know what the generic name is. And we use a 1/8 inch spiral cutting bit, and we'll just plunge in, cut around the inside of these cuts. So now we're going to drill holes for our plumbing. The important thing is we always start the hole from the back side and then finish the hole all the way through on the front side. So I'm going to punch these holes through. So basically we'll have a pilot hole marking the inside, then hand the drill to John, and he's going to drill back through from the other side. These holes are going to be a smaller dimension, but the bit size is the same, so we can go ahead and punch them through so they're marked on the inside. So then John will drill this hole through, so the blowout is on the back side of the cabinet and the hole will be cleaner in the front. Then we'll change out the hole saw and drill the small ones. In. Sweet, they all work. That's a relief. Before we level all of these up and screw it to the wall, I'm going to attach these two cabinets together. It's the more cabinets you can attach together before you level them up, it's typically easier. if I had tried to level this, there was like a hole in the floor we're gonna have to shim in, which was gonna be weird. So I'm gonna go ahead and attach these. I'm gonna put a straight edge across the front to make sure it's flat, and then attach it in the back so it holds itself square, and then we'll raise everything up to our line and put a level on it and level everything up. So when you're screwing these together, we're not so much worried about them being level right now. We just want it to be flush on the face and flush on the top. So I'm gonna just shim things as needed to make that happen. So right now this cabinet's a little high, so I'm gonna shim this one up in the front. And then see, now it's twisted, so I need to pick the back up off the ground over there. So we'll do like this. And then put a clamp on to hold it.
Close. Let you manipulate how you want to.
Alright, so I'm flush here, I'm flush right here. I'm not down here, but I don't really care. As long as I'm flush at one point, I can run a screw at that point and then it'll pivot. It's very hot. You pull the drill out as you're drilling, it helps clean the bit out. Now, twist this like that, clamp on it, and we'll screw this together down here.
Why did you choose to put the screw right here?
So we put the screw on this side because a hinge plate is going to cover it, and so that'll mostly hide this screw. On the other side, the reason that I didn't put it here was because it's so far down from the top. So we'll put a screw here on this one, and then on this side I just put it as high up as I could because this drawer front was in the way. Hard to get a screw in right there. Okay, so now we want to make sure that the face of these cabinets are flat. So because there's some playroom, like see, I can do that. If the cabinets are touching in the back, it's tight, and I've got my level is touching here, there's a gap down here. So I want to pull this cabinet over so it's touching. And we'll put a shim here and a screw to lock that together so it won't move. Good. So now we want to level this whole cabinet up. We've already got this section leveled. It's not screwed to the wall, but we have a line for a benchmark. But the most important thing is that the level is reading level. And we're going to use this 8-foot because it's longer. And then John's going to pick up the screws. So I typically will start with the back. That right there actually is reading pretty stinking level. So what we're gonna do now is we're we're gonna get our pry bar. See how there's a gap right here? We want this to touch the level right there. So I'm gonna lift this up. Until it's touching that level. All right, and then we check to make sure it's still level. Just looking pretty good. Now we'll go to that far end. We got a little bit of a gap down here. So I want to raise that up till I touch the level. Right there. All right, now we'll slide the level forward. Do the same thing. Check and see if we're level. All right, so this is not level. It's showing that the right side needs to come up a little bit. So we'll lift the right side up and John will tell me when it's level.
A little more. Rip. Fuzz more. Another. Right there.
Okay. Now we're touching it, the level is reading level, and we're touching at this point and at that point. So now all we got to do is lift up this corner until it touches the level. Right there. Now, as you can see, now that I've lifted this up, I've got a little gap down there. So sometimes these cabinets are not perfectly flat. No matter what you do, they're going to be a little bit off. So don't get too hung up at making them like super perfect. It depends on the type of cabinets that you're installing. A frameless cabinet, you can usually get a whole lot closer, but this style of face frame cabinet usually has, the tolerances aren't quite as tight, so sometimes we have to compromise, and we know that we got a hump right here in the middle of these cabinets, so we're going to let the level touch here, and then maybe be down the cabinet down a little here and down just a little bit right there, and we kind of average it out. As long as that reads good, it'll be fine. Once that granite countertop sits on all this, it'll bridge all those gaps, and half the time they shim it up anyway off of our cabinets, because granite is not perfectly flat, contrary to popular knowledge. So we double check this back here, that looks good. Check this up here, then we'll take this 2-foot level and we'll double check and make sure that this looks pretty good here and that is a little bit out. So we're going to adjust that based on looking at this and saying, okay, that could maybe move a little bit. Look at this. That could drop just a little bit. So we're trying to figure out which direction we need to move it so that that end is more level. The good thing is with the 2-foot level that a drastic amount on the bubble on the 2-foot does not equal a whole lot of variance in the top. The same amount of out on the bubble on the 8-foot level will compound that distance out over 4 times because it levels 4 times as long, but the bubble is the same size. So I need to still drop a little bit.
That's better.
I might kind of have to just cheat it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've got this leveled up where we want it, one thing that is critical is our appliance opening sizes. So we have 2 appliances going here. There's a range that's going to sit here, and there's a dishwasher that's going to sit here. So this is where we get a little squirrely. the easiest way to do this is we'll probably take some stretchers and cut them to 24 inches wide and put them in this opening so it holds square where we want it. And then a 30-inch stretcher down here in this opening, because this whole cabinet needs to kick to that wall, because we're lined up at the end of those cabinets down there, so that's kind of locked in where we have to be. So we have to work our openings back this direction. So we'll go 24-inch opening and then 30. So that means this cabinet's gonna have to kick back that way and maybe twist a little bit. So we'll get all those kinks worked out, putting our straight edge on, make sure our appliance openings are good, and then once it's all good, we'll shim it and screw it to the back wall. Okay, so we are done with the perimeter cabinets. Everything's screwed to the wall. We got it shimmed out where it needs to be. The center sink cabinet was a little bit racked, but we got it moved where we needed it to be, so our appliance openings are correct. And now we're going to screw the island together, but that's pretty much it until we needed to get them to the point of being able to template for countertops. So they're going to template this area, template the island. They're going to have to come and patch this floor, and then we'll be able to actually set the island where it goes. We still need to do finished bottoms on the bottoms of these cabinets. Wires will come through those. We're going to run light rail on the bottoms of the upper cabinets, but we're going to wait until the tile goes in to butt the light rail into the tile so they don't have to notch around it. And we still have to run crown at the top and put on hardware. So good little bit left to do, but this is phase one for now, just so they can go template for countertops. And then we'll come back after that and finish the rest of it.